Hello everybody, it's the Game Judge here, and I feel like The Elder Scrolls 6 is on a lot of people's minds at the moment, including mine. One of my biggest concerns about The Elder Scrolls 6 is the size of the game and what direction Bethesda Game Studios is going to go in regards to this. You wonder, is it going to be bigger than Starfield? Is it going to be bigger than Skyrim? Does it even need to be? I think in order to get a grasp on this thing, we need to take a step back and look at the recent design decisions by Bethesda. To do that, I want to take a look at their most recently released game, Starfield. Now this game has divided the community more than any other Bethesda game in my opinion, and I definitely felt the hate when I made a Starfield review a little while ago. I mean, people are really sensitive about Starfield, but that is besides the point. In my opinion, Bethesda went way too far in the direction of a larger world, or quantity rather, as opposed to a smaller world emphasizing quality and detail. When I say quality, I mean things like the size of the world itself, which includes things like loot, POI, NPCs, and how filled in the world actually is. I want to go into depth about some of these areas to show you exactly what I mean. First, let's talk about NPCs, and to me, NPCs are arguably the most important thing in a good RPG game. They make the world feel less empty and like it's an actual real world with real people doing things, and I really felt like Bethesda was improving these things from game to game. Although I felt like it was never a big strength of Bethesda compared to other games, but if we look at the progression from Morrowind, Oblivion to Skyrim, I do see improvements. In Skyrim in particular, they improved the NPCs by having interesting day and night cycles. You would see a guy chopping wood or blacksmithing, and then having random conversations with other people. The NPCs were more interactive in my opinion. I feel in Starfield they really went away from this in the pursuit of size or scale of the game. The NPCs had weird facial animations that still haunt me till this day.
Hello there. Let me just tilt my head to communicate with you. Don't mind my freaky eyes.
And they had really boring night and day cycles. They acted unnatural or didn't react to things that you're doing in the world at all. A good example of this regression is if we take a look at Bethesda's Oblivion that was released in 2006, where they follow you around in the shop if you try to go upstairs. Contrast this with Starfield and you will see what I mean. Not the direction I want to see them go. I really want them to scale back on the size of the world in Elder Scrolls 6 and focus on making the NPCs feel more alive. Maybe give them more interesting backstories, or have them sneak off and do some skooma.
You there! Bring me another bottle of skooma. Wait, who are you? You look like fun. Pull up a seat, friend.
Just make them more reactionary to the world around them, or even actions you take. I just want the world to pay attention to me. They were improving up to Skyrim, and I want to see them go back to this with Elder Scrolls 6. One more thing about the NPCs is I would like to see a little more of them in the towns and in the world itself. Always felt like there was not enough of them, and the population always felt kind of small for the scale of an Elder Scrolls game. Like in Skyrim when you're taking over a town and you have like 5 guards with you.
And sacrifice much to bring us to this point.
It just didn't truly match the scale of epic for me, but I digress. The next thing I want to talk about that I feel needs to be accounted for when scaling Elder Scrolls 6 is POIs. I'm sorry if you're a Starfield fan, but walking across barren big planets with limited POIs is just not fun for me. I don't care if developers tell me that the astronauts went to the moon and they weren't bored, or that it was designed to be that way. I don't like it. I want to see interesting caves, dungeons, and hidden things in the world as points of interest. Maybe a town full of giants, or a town full of vampires. Something along those lines. In the Elder Scrolls 6, I'd love to see bigger towns with more intricate details, or even the same size, or perhaps even smaller towns with more intricate details. I want to walk up to a village in Elder Scrolls 6 and see flowers or vines along the houses, insects flying around, people running around the market to buy things. I want the world to feel more alive, not just a bigger space. Skyrim was big enough. I guess for me, I never felt when I played Skyrim, for example, that the world needed to be bigger to be better. I always look at things like the NPCs and the side quests as needing work. The formula for the size of the game is already there with Skyrim. I guess where I'm trying to get at with the size of this game is I need Bethesda to pivot from their current way of thinking. I need Todd Howard to realize that merely increasing the size of a game is not going to do what he thinks it will do.
They tried that with Starfield and divided the community with mixed views of the game. Contrast this with Skyrim or Oblivion and you don't see a divide like this. They need to go back and take a big look at Morrowind, Skyrim, and Oblivion and analyze what people loved about those games and what were the weaknesses. What concerns me here is Todd Howard seems to think the biggest takeaway is that people are playing games for longer, for like 10 years or so he wants to support that. I think this is the wrong outlook to have for Elder Scrolls 6. I think they need to look at what the weaknesses are for those games and improve those, not lazily just increase the size or scale of the game.
But perhaps it's not all doom and gloom, because surprisingly, if we take a look at the past Bethesda games and the size of those games, you may be surprised. This was according to a GameRant article where they ranked the size of Bethesda's past Elder Scrolls games. And if we take a look here, we can see the biggest game that they made was the Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall. And then if we scroll up, we can see Elder Scrolls Arena number 2, and then Elder Scrolls Online, and then Elder Scrolls Oblivion at number 4. Which may surprise you, Oblivion is actually bigger than Skyrim, which tells me that they're willing to go back and scale the game down and fill the world with more things, like the NPCs having more interesting day and night cycles in Skyrim, where they're blacksmithing and then they're sweeping or they're chopping wood, right? So that tells me that they're willing to do that. And then after that, we have Morrowind. So they are willing to bounce back and forth, and this can give us hope. Like maybe they decide that Starfield was a game that was too big and they decide that they need to scale it down a lot more, like they did perhaps from Oblivion to Skyrim. One can only hope. So this puts Bethesda in the spot of having to make a big design decision when it comes to Elder Scrolls 6. That is the balancing of quality and quantity. To show you what I'm talking about here, I kind of want to use an analogy here. So let's say you have the option of having one piece of land that's really filled in with towns and creatures and interesting stories and interactive NPCs and even more amounts of NPCs. And then let's say you have the option of doing another piece of land. But if you increase it and add another piece of land, then the first piece of land will have less things in it. It'll be more spread out across 2 pieces of land. Then let's say you have the option of 3 pieces of land. But if you do 3 pieces of land in your game, it's going to be even more stretched out. And I think this is where Bethesda has to figure out how to balance this correctly. So are they going to have more procedurally generated elements, such as they did in Starfield? Or are they perhaps going to change course and go back to how they did Skyrim, with a smaller world but more handcrafted locations? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Personally, I hope they don't focus on size too much. Skyrim was a fine size for me, and I hope they focus on handcrafting the world and making it feel more alive. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.